Sir, we are live. So I will start it right now. Very good morning to all. It's my great pleasure to welcome you all for this Knowledge 4.0 webinar series, which is one of the unique initiative of our college, Chennai Institute of Technology, under the guidance of our Honorable Chairman, Mr. P. Sriram, a successful first-generation entrepreneur, a well-known industrialist, and Managing Director of MGA Group of Companies. Under Knowledge 4.0 webinar series, we have been conducting webinar series such as Technical Webinar Series, Research Webinar Series, Career Guidance Webinar Series, and Innovative Webinar Series. Chennai Institute of Technology was established in 2010 by our Honorable Chairman, Mr. P. Sriram. Now, our institute is being the second rank as far as the Anna University results announced in the last week. So, we are proud to be in the second place out of 400 plus engineering colleges in Tamil Nadu. So, today we have Mr. Rufus George, State Engagement Officer, NSDC, for the theme Skill Development for India's Future. It is my happy and pleasure moment to welcome you for this wonderful event, sir.
Thank you.
I take immense pleasure to welcome our principal, Dr. A. Ramesh, to say a few words about this webinar.
Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Balamurali. Yeah. Happy morning to all the participants. First of all, let me join with Dr. Balamurali in extending a very warm welcome to Mr. Rufus George for this webinar. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Dear participants, you know very well, nowadays, three important qualities are required for everyone to excel in their profession, whatever may be their profession. Three qualities are very much essential. One is the knowledge, which is very much essential. Next one is skill, and the third one is attitude. Without these three qualities, whatever the profession you are working, you cannot able to excel and succeed. Yes, knowledge you can gain by reading the books, by undertaking some assessments, you can gain your knowledge. But nowadays, the job market or the industries are not only looking for the knowledge, they also look for skill. What skill one person is possessing, whether that particular skill matches their job requirements, then only they will be ready to take them. So skill nowadays plays a vital role in deciding the professional growth of all our young generation. Keeping this in mind, and in order to develop skill force and to impart skill to young generation, Government of India has launched the Skill India mission to empower the youth of the country with the skill sets which make them more employable and more protective in their work environment. Skill India offers courses across 40 sectors in our country, which are aligned to the standards recognized by both industry and by the Government of India under the National Skill Qualification Framework, shortly called as NSQF. The success of any nation always depends on the success of its youth. And Skill India is certain to bring a lot of advantage and opportunities for young Indians. The time is not too far away for when India will evolve into a skilled society where there is a prosperity and dignity to everyone. Chennai Institute of Technology is giving a lot of importance to skill development of its students. Chennai Institute of Technology has created more than 20 centers of excellences in association with the leading industries and government organizations. And through those center of excellences, regular skill upgradation training programs are being conducted for our students. And we are planning to extend this facility to the other students who are studying in other colleges also. With the help of the skill enhancement, our students are able to get a good placement in core sectors and other leading companies. So today we have a very good resource person, in fact, with us, Mr. Rufus George, who is taking care of the NSDC activities for Tamil Nadu and Pondicherry section. I think he will be discussing with you all about what are the different programs that are being offered by NSTC and how the young generation can get benefit out of this. I take this opportunity to express my sincere thanks to Mr. Rufus George for having accepted our invitation to participate in this webinar. Thanks, sir. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks for your motivation to conduct the webinar series in effective and successful manner. Now, a few words about Mr. Rufus George. He is currently with the National Skill Development Corporation as State Engagement Officer for Tamil Nadu and Puducherry. He focuses on overseeing and coordinating the activities of NSDC, including the PMKVY scheme that provides free vocational training to unemployed youth. He is engaged in coordinating with the state government and industries to promote skill development and various activities implemented by NSDC. Prior to this, he was the Assistant Director at the Federation of Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industries, FICCI, for Tamil Nadu, working with various industry sectors. He has experience working with both corporate sector and CSOs in various industry promotions, policy-related work, and also on social aspects. He holds a master's in social work from Madras School of Social Work, Chennai, and bachelor's degree from Loyola College. It is my pleasure and honor to have you for this wonderful session, sir. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. A very good morning to everybody. So as we're starting the skilling program, I'll just give an overview what I'm going to talk about today. So is the slide visible? I'm starting it now. Okay. So
Yes,
yeah, thank you. The scheme is skilling for India's future. All of you would have heard about skills. What is people are saying industry is needing skills. Government is working on skill. Government is spending a huge amount on skill. But the question is, why did skill get so much of hype, and what is the reason for focusing on skills? Because for so many years we've not focused so much on skills. Suddenly, skills is everywhere. And everybody's talking about skills. Industries is talking about skills. College, schools, everybody's talking about skills. The government is focusing on skills, and we are talking about making India the skills capital of the world. So, what does it all mean? And who's doing all these things? And what are the issues that are at stake here? That is what we're going to see. So, I'm just going to start with an overview, so you understand the whole thing, what we're doing. And as we progress, I will just give some information on what NSTC is, how the skill ecosystem is in India. With that, we'll close. So in today's scenario, there are 5 global trends changing, which is changing the business model, how businesses function across the globe. One is, you may know all these things. One is technology innovation, you know it. And at this moment, coronavirus, there is a stark contrast where you're literally been forced to go online. If you're not using the mobile, you have to start using the mobile. If you're not using internet, you have to start using internet, because everything is online. And sometime back when demonetization came, everybody has had to make payments through phones. Even in the small shops, they have Paytm. So innovation it's just literally disrupting everywhere. There's literally a disruption in industry across schools, colleges, and vocational institutions. And the second thing is global economic integration, demographic and generational shifts, a lot of change patterns that we're seeing. Climate change and sustainability, whatever we are doing today has a direct impact on the nature. So all these things are crucial. And also there is a huge global shortage of skilled labor. So that is what we are focusing on right now. And when you talk about shortage of global labor, shortage of labor across the globe, what is it? Why are we talking about India right now? There is something called a demographic dividend, wherein how the population of any particular country is divided. Right now, India has got a demographic dividend wherein you have huge number of young people. The question is, how skilled are they to take up employment? That is where the issue starts. So if we have enough good skilled labor, they can get into work. But that's the problem that India is facing. So I'll just give you a background of what is happening across the world and us comparatively, and then I'll highlight a few issues for you. So this is India's skill scenario. So as I told you, the demographic dividend, so for more than 54% of its population is below 25 years. and of that 62% is in the working age group of 15 to 59. So compared to the world, we are a young population. So I've given the comparison on the chart below. In India, the average is 28 years old. In China, at the same time, like for example, you have a boy who's 28 years old in India today. So in China, the average age is 37, USA it's 37, Western Europe it's 45, and Japan is 49. So clearly we have an advantage in terms of the age of the youth. But the question that stands is how skilled are our youth, and how skilled is our workforce? That's what we need to focus. So as it's written, to fully, if you want to really, if India wants to really maximize this and look at this as an asset, it is essential for the youth to be equipped with education and contemporary skills and training. It's not skills and training which was in the past. Contemporary, what is the world requiring now? What is the industry requiring now? That is what we need to focus on. So when you compare it, see, in India we don't have this particular concept of dignity of labor. We've already seen, if someone is working in an IT company, we look up on them. If someone is working in a hotel or is a server or something, we look down on them. If someone is doing welding or fitting, we don't give so much of importance, but those skills are very essential for the industry. And this differentiation is present only in India. Like you see the comparison that I've put up. Our skilled, the formally skilled workforce globally in India is only around 2%, compared to in South Korea 96% of them are skilled, in Japan 80% are skilled, in Germany 75%, UK 68%, and China 40% are fully skilled. So that is a stark contrast. Like we need to literally move on. India needs to shake up, and educationists, the industrialists, the government, everybody should start looking into it and promoting skills so that we have a really equipped and skilled workforce. So the reasons why there is unemployment, because shortage of schools, unemployment is all related. One of the reasons is there is a mismatch. If a student who is passing out is not, the industry is not able to take him, because there is a mismatch on what he studied is not relevant to what is there on the industry. What he studied is not helping him work on the machines that the companies are having. So that is a real mismatch. So there is a total, what do you say? There is a rift. You can't cross the other side. So that needs to be bridged. And that's why industry and academia, we need to come together to bridge the mismatch. So industry, whatever you teach in the colleges, we need to know that is what the industry needs. We cannot take a subject, teach it, and expect the industry to absorb a candidate. We need to teach the candidates what the industry is requiring, what is happening today, what is going to happen in the next 5 years. So we need to train them on that. So the Ministry of Skill Development, the Ministry of Skill Development is one of the youngest ministries recently formed, and we'll talk about that later. We have a focus on aiming to skill around 400 million Indians by 2022 under the PMKVY scheme, Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. I'll talk more on that later. So I'll just cover the Indian skills scenario. So more than 60% today of 8 lakh engineering graduates from technical institutions remain unemployed. That is a funny thing. You have, more than 60%. That's not even half. It's more than half. So, the question is, what's happening to these people? See, they've studied for something, but they're not getting placed. And where do they end up? They don't end up working for what they study. They end up with something much lower, or even they end up being unemployed completely for a long period. So this is a really disturbing figure that we need to notice. And if you see, 39% of employees say that attracting and finding quality talent is one of the most challenging aspects, because 90% of the job is skill based. So without skills, it's, in fact, literally the market is telling us, without skills, our students don't have a chance. They don't have a chance at all. Industry will not take them, and there will be no growth. They can't be absorbed at all. So where are we missing it? What is the problem? We'll look at the issues. And another thing is limited mobility between formal education, vocation training, due to lack of. If you see someone, as I told you earlier, we don't equate skills with education. If someone has studied a degree and someone has done ITI, no, we think, oh, this is inferior, but that's not it. This is more important job. It all depends on the place where they work. So someone who's studying till 8th standard, he should be given the option to move on to skill. And that particular 8th standard till which he studied has to be given importance. That is what we talk about, mobility between education and vocational training. So industries should set up training centers. The institutes should be set up by training centers in industrial areas where people can train hands-on in the new technology that is being present. And once they are trained, automatically they will be absorbed by other industries. What is the challenge that we face other than being the youngest? So this is the statistics that we have. Approximately 70 million additional individuals between 15 to 59. They're entering the country's labor force by 2023, and of this 404.15 million people, the total workforce will be constituting of 404.15 million people. So this is the statistics, and the question is skills. Again, we're coming back to skills. So as I told you earlier, perception towards skill training must be changed, and you have to have new strategies and to increase the current skills of the workforce. As I told you, India's labor force above 30 years of age is 262 million, of which 259 million are currently employed, need to be future ready. So when you talk about future ready, a graduate or a person who's finished skilling and moving on he can't be future ready. He is just fresh. You just trained him on certain skills. So when you talk about future ready, you're talking about the existing skilled workforce that you have in a company need to be able to handle technology enabled skilled activities that is going to come. So you need to have a futuristic thinking. So they have to be given reskilling, upskilling. That's what we're focusing on. So public sector collaboration with industry and private sector, more companies and government should come together to establish skilling training centers so that you increase the standard of skilling in India. And pathways for international mobility, it has been international standards. So the question is, you take for example a person, anybody, any skill. For example, it can be a retail sales person, or it can be a mobile phone service operator, or it can be he can be a welder. Whatever he studied here, does it have international value? If he goes abroad, this certificate, does it matter? Does it give him get him a job there? See, if when you're talking about going global, if we do not match up to their standards, our students don't have a chance of getting any jobs outside of India. So that is something that we need to consider. And then addressing women's low participation in the labor force. See, all the neighboring countries of India, if you see, they have a lot of women participation. And women participation in India is limited mostly to sewing machine operator, self-employed tailor. But there are a lot of other job opportunities waiting for women. Women are into painting. They're even into welding. They're into any job. You have women pilots now, so they are coming up. So the more women employment we see in our country, the economy of the country will shoot up. The neighboring countries, their economy goes up, and the World Bank says that is because they have more women participation. So that is something that really we need to encourage, and I think it's taken shape. Many women are coming forward to get trained, and you need to explore, break up stereotypes. In earlier times, when you say women can do only this, they can do only cooking, they can do only teaching. No, they can do everything. You need to open up this opportunity. So you need to literally counsel them. You need to motivate them. So that's what we need. These are the challenges that we need to face and overcome. So in 2015, the National Skills Policy was formed. Earlier, there was a skill policy in 2009, but this is a new one. And these are the core focus areas of the skill policy. One is addressing key obstacles to skilling. That, as we talk about, low aspirational value, giving importance to skill, lack of integration with formal education, focus on the outcome, and improving the quality of training, providing good infrastructure for skill development, good places, good machines where they can train, and thereby become competent enough to enter the market, and become a very valued skilled person and a skilled entrepreneur also in the future. Align supply and demand of skills by bridging existing skill gaps. Promoting industry engagement. So you can't do everything in isolation. You can't say, okay, let me just train and then we'll see where I can place. No, we need to train what the industry wants. So that is what promoting industry, having a discussion with the industry, talking to them, asking them what is the kind of curriculum that we need to bring, what kind of training that we can give so that they will absorb our candidates. What is futuristic? What are the skills when the students learn? They're going to be in sync with the future. They're not going to be updated. because today they say if you're not updated, you're outdated. That it was in IT, but the same thing is coming to also skilling, because IT has permeated every part of work in this in this industry 4.0. uh, and you talk about quality assurance framework. So these are the aligning things that we need to do, and technology and promoting greater opportunities for apprenticeship. That's another thing that we need to focus on. See, the difference between apprenticeship and skilling in a training center is, when a apprentice is working, he works directly. It's like on the job training, and that gives him a direct interface with the industry, literally with the shop floor. So for him getting in, finishing this and going to work, it's no big deal, because he's working in the same environment for the past 2 years. He literally knows it. He's more proficient than the boy who works in the classroom and then studies and all those things. So it's got an edge. So when we need to give that importance to the apprenticeship, and those apprentices who we come across, we need to give them value. We need to absorb them in the country. So industries, institutions, everybody should encourage students to go become apprentices. We have apprenticeship website and portal where you can just join. There's huge amount of opportunities, candidates can make use of it. And we need to have an inclusive focus. So providing skilling opportunities for socially, geographically marginalized disadvantaged group, and entrepreneurship programs for women. So a lot of opportunities are there. There are people who are not very rich. The question is, who's going to help them? Government schemes are there. So this skill is thrusting on that. So we are focusing on the unemployed and school dropouts who are not able to go for any particular skill development, and also to educate and equip potential entrepreneurs both from within and outside the formal education system. So we've never thought about entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurs, see, in a skilling ecosystem, once the candidate moves up the skill ladder, level 1, level 2, level 3, as I'll later show you from NSQF, he moves on, he becomes an entrepreneur. You need to give him that idea that he can become an entrepreneur, he can manage things. So this has to be provided. So we have programs like the government programs, wherein you give collateral free loans, encouraging right from 50,000 to it goes to 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs also. So government is coming up with like this Mudra schemes, for example. So these are all the thrust areas of the national skills policy. And just briefly before we move on, just to talk about the future of skills, the emerging trends. These are the three main areas when you talk about skills. It's meta skills, soft skills, and hard skills. So when you talk about meta skills, it's talking about environmental intelligence, sustainability skills, continuous learning, multidisciplinary transfer, creative and adaptability. You can't work on something that you learned 10 years back. You can't say, this is what I'm not going to get into technology. No, this is what I learned. This is what I'll be doing. I can't do that. No, that is what it's talking about, relearning. You need to learn. You need to continuously learn. What you learn today is outdated tomorrow. What you learn tomorrow will be outdated day after tomorrow. So how are you going to keep yourself in sync? You have to keep learning every day, and you have to unlearn what you've learned. Maybe for 10 years you've been doing a particular thing in a particular fashion. Now it's gone. Like for example, when you take welding, you have online, you have simulators, welding simulators, wherein you don't have to go to the floor shop. You can just do it online, and then when you're ready, when your hands steady and all this, when you know the concepts of it, then you can go to the shop floor, or you can go to the center where you can literally practice on it. So this is the future of this is the future, and this is the focus on continuously learning, and you need to be adaptive. So for that, you need to have a mind which is able to take up everything. You should not get stuck. So always a mind. So the future is going to be like that. It's going to start right now. In the future, every day is day of learning. That is how we should see. And then soft skills, communication, emotional quotient, safety skills, collaboration, human to machine. That's the future. Everything there's a mission, automation. That is what it is. And we talk about now fuel cars to electric cars. What is going to happen? And you need to know how to communicate to the car, and using the interface, whatever they're providing you. So that's soft skills. And hard skills, obviously, we need to know the basics. Without the basics, we don't move. So you need to know design, programming, cyber physical system, knowledge transfer. So how do you take what you learned traditionally and put it today in a very what do you say, in a computerized fashion? How do you do that in terms of, in this age of digitalization? How do you digitalize everything? What do you do? So that is what hard skills is all about. So this is the three trends that we are seeing. So you need to be continuously learning and relearning and upgrading your skills. So that is what the future is going to be. So just to expound on what we saw earlier, it's ability to work with data. This is just a few. I'm not, if I'm going through fully, it'll be exhaustive. So just little. Ability to work with data, which visualization, data analytics, statistical knowledge. Now everything is based on data. Data is currency today, as you already know. So that kind of skill you need to have to observe data. Knowledge of ICT, IT security, data protection, as I tell, data analyticals, personal skills, continuous learning, human to machine interaction, technical know-how, and specific knowledge of manufacturing, setting up MSMEs, the SMEs, small and medium enterprises, and digital leadership. And R&D has to be given a huge importance, because that is what is going to drive our future. And even the Prime Minister's Atmanirbhar is talking about a self-reliant India. So if we are going to be a self-reliant India, first is we have to be competent enough to the other countries. So do we have that quality, and how are we going to do that, get that quality without any R&D and technology integration and process? We cannot be using something which is very old and try to manage things that are today. It doesn't work out. So these are the future. So the future is quite demanding. The skills that we need are quite demanding for the future. Okay, so I'm just done with that. So I'm just going on to what the government is doing right now, and grant-based programs that is being offered by the government. PMKY is a very key government initiative, which is done by the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. NSTC is implementing the PMKY for the Government of India. There are three categories under the PMKY, three types of training. One is the short-term training, and then is the RPL, recognition of prior learning, and then is the special projects. Short-term training ranges between 300 hours to 350 hours to 400 hours per particular subject. It can be mobile phone service operator, it can be a sewing machine operator, or it can be a welding technician, it can be a mason, junior mason. So this is like they sit in the classroom, study for 2 hours, and then train for 2 hours, and then after that they get placed anywhere. RPL is a very unique training system, wherein I'll just give you an example. You have a lot of companies in India, and there are a lot of companies in Tamil Nadu, for example, and a lot of people are working. Now, these people have been working there for more than 10 years. But even though they worked there for 10 years, they know the job, but they're not qualified. Maybe they just joined as an apprentice, or without any education, they just joined and someone taught them the job, and they've been working on it. They've even become a supervisor, but they don't have, they're not qualified. So what the government is doing is, we will identify those kind of people and do an assessment. If they need some help, we'll do a short-term course for like 2 to 3 days, maximum a week or something. After that, we will recognize the learning they have based on assessments, and then certify them. Now what is happening is, he's become a certified skilled operator. He can take up job anywhere. It is recognizing their skills and giving them promotion. That is what RPL is. Special training, it talks about training people in prison, and training, for example, widows, on a special focused environment. So that's about special projects. And then we have the National Apprenticeship Program that has undergone a lot of changes. A lot of leverage has been given to industry. Industry can take it up in a big way. Then we have a free portal wherein industries can go register. Candidates can go and find out where are they have apprenticeship opportunities. So it's like so that will combine both classroom and on-the-job training. And then there's the Sankalp scheme. Sankalp scheme is to promote each state's skill activities. So that is partly being done with World Bank funding and the local government. How each state has prepared a skill plan. So that's what's up. Udan is talking about North India. So all these things. So we're trying to bring all these schemes. All these things we're trying to integrate it with the major schemes of the government. Ultimately, looking out for a very skilled manpower, a young, skilled, competent manpower. That's what we're looking at. Then, okay. Now I'm talking about. Let's go. Now I just briefly gave you the issue and where we are and all. Now we'll talk about the skill ecosystem. You talked about NSTC. I talked about MSD, Ministry of Skill Development. When was it formed? What is it doing? What comes under MSD? So I'll just run you through that. The Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, MSD shortly called, it was formed in 2014. Under the ministry, you have three major organizations. One is the National Skill Development Agency, NSDA. Another is the Directorate General of Training, DGT, and National Skill Development Fund. See, the Director General of DGT, as you all know, looks after the ITIs, government and private, across the nation. And then the National Skill Development Fund, that is where the money the government is giving comes through, and it disperses that to NSDC. Now, NSDC is a different body. It is partly government, partly held by the private sector. You'll see that. And under NSDC, you have the Sector Skill Council and the private sector support. This is the core of the skill ecosystem, which is formed at the national level. Okay, the focus of NSDC. What is NSDC's role? Building and training capacity to private sector participation, setting up strong industry linkages and partnerships, facilitating government schemes and priorities. So what NSDC does is we are sometimes like a funding agency. Whom do we fund? We don't give grants, but we give loans. What kind of loans? We give loans for institutes to set up new training institutes and train people and place them. So we are literally like we are just watering the plant so that and see the tree grows. So we want to set up new big training centers so they take up skilling in a big way. So it doesn't restrict itself to the ITIs and polytechnics, but we have short-term skilling. So we're literally catering to the huge number of people. So that is what NSCC is doing. So we have a huge number of private participation, and then we tie up with industries. We do CSR enabled skilling projects and all. And like PMKVY, we run programs, and then we set up the portals for the government on skilling activities. We consolidate the skilling activities in the Indian country. So just to put the key interventions, what we do is to create training capacities to facilitate private sector participation in skill development. So that is, see, unless we get the private sector on board, we can't move forward, because by design, our ITI centers, polytechnics, they're not sufficient enough to cater to the population of youngsters that we have. So you need to have the private sector. So you need somebody who is working on that, who's pushing forward, who's bringing in this private sector. That's what NSTC is doing. And vocational education training in India, it's nascent, as you know. So we are trying to integrate formal education and skill development. We are trying to integrate. So that is why the NSQF was formed, wherein NSQF was given equal validation with education, so that people see value in that skills. And as I told you earlier, we're bringing corporates to spend the CSR funds for skilling, setting up a center for excellences with the help of the industries. We are asking education institutions to promote vocational education skill development. The new education policy which has come out is talking about vocational training in schools itself. That's what we are also focusing on. And higher education institutions to provide knowledge, skills, and soft skills too, and experiential learning. So this is what that we are focusing on, strengthening of industry linkage and underway. Like NSTC has done a lot of, like, for example, we tied up with urban company, it's called. Earlier it was called Urban Club. So you have and the trained candidates that we have, they get into Urban Club, and we train them, and then they go and work. They make a livelihood out of it. So that's taken up in a big way. So we're trying up in many organizations like this. So as I told you, three-pronged approach that we have. One is to fund large quality vocational training institution, enable commercial, viable, scalable training enterprises. So we fund, and we also help, and we also create. We have the Sector Skill Council, which is the representation body of the industry, and they're the ones who certify and create the course curriculum for any particular job role. So in all these things, NSTC is acting like a catalyst. So organizational role, we provide knowledge and advisory services. We implement government schemes such as the PMKVY, UDAN, TITP, all those things. Then we finance skill financing. As I told you, we fund to set up skill training centers, and we create enabling system, monitoring, tracking. We make sure even the private NSTC partners, we make sure that they're doing it properly. We track the content in which they're providing training, and also we follow to see if they're providing placement services. And for setting up new skill centers, we provide knowledge and advisory services. And we are even trying to go abroad to do to other countries also. So, on a broad role, this is what NSTC's roles: financing, sector skill governance, which I'll talk about later. Next slide. apprenticeship and industry connect, capacity building, national government schemes implementation, standards quality of the courseware that we were creating, international collaboration, and we are also a partner of the UNIVOC, United Nations Vocational Center, CSL skilling, assessment and certification, market analyticals, and technology enabled. So in fact, what we've done is NSTC has created the Skill India portal, wherein you have all the skill training programs across various government departments and schemes. We are trying to merge it together in one place, and thereby from there we're trying to make a one platform for skill development, through that to reach out and to maximize skilling opportunities. So NSTC has got forward in terms of adopting technology in a big way. So every candidate that registers in our training, everybody is registered, right from the name, age, other numbers. So we've gone to stringent measures. So we do it through our PMKVY centers across in Tamil Nadu. Right now we have around nationally central sponsored 27 training centers we have. I mean, earlier we had around 400 training centers. Now it has come less because we've given the training to the states. So states are taking it. Tamil Nadu Skill Development Corporation is taking up a lot of training from NSTC, and they are also implementing their own training program, which all follows the NSQF guidelines and similar to NSTC. Now who are the Sector Skill Council? Now the Sector Skill Council, as I said, are set up by NSTC. And what is the role of the Sector Skill Council? Sector Skill Council are basically the representation of the industry. They identify the job roles which are in demand today, and they create the course content, what needs to be trained, what needs to be trained for that. So you can find more of this information from the NSTC website. So they provide for example, if you take any particular job role, if you want a junior software developer who's getting into the IT field, so does that particular job, does it require importance, does it require I mean, is it relevant today? If someone gets trained on that, will they get an offer today? Will they be working? Will there be enough opportunities? That is what the Sector Skill Council do. They create the course curriculum. They don't stop with that. They also do the assessment and counseling, and when they certify, you have that particular SSC who's the head of who's an expert in that particular field. They certify along with the Ministry of Skill Development and NSTC. And so now this certification is valid not only in India, across the globe also. I'll tell you why. So we have around 38 Sector Skill Council right now. We've so I think it's already there. Training and need analysis, curriculum development, rolling out of training, assessment, certification, and also they do trainer of trainers program. So they train the trainers also. There is a standard. So NSTC has brought out a standard so that whatever is happening in North India is happening in South India. That quality remains the same. What is happening in Kanyakumari is also happening in North. So that is what we're looking at. And when you talk about the Sector Skill Council, we have the primary, tertiary, and manufacturing sector. Primary is basic ones, which is agri, food processing, green jobs, life sciences. Tertiary is retail, IT, media, etc. And then you have plumbing. And then you have manufacturing, automobile, rubber, gems, jewelry, core areas, core industries. So this is about Sector Skill Council. So as I told you, this is just I think I've gone faster than the slide. The Sector Skill Council, they do need analysis, create occupation standards and curriculum content, quality assurance, and industry interface. And as I told you, they do the trainer of trainers program, they certify them, demand aggregation also. They do conduct skill gap studies on that particular job role or that particular sector. For example, you have Retail Sector Skill Council. They do it on a retail sector, and they find out what particular job role is required, what kind of training needs to be based on today's norms. Today, you can't sell something to somebody based on what you learned like 10 years back. You need to know what is happening today, and you need to be ready to know what's going to happen tomorrow. Now, from virtual showrooms, from physical showrooms, you've gone to virtual showrooms, like platforms like Amazon and Flipkart have come. So how do you interface with them? And, how do you move forward? So this is just one typical example. So the similar thing will apply in other industries also. The question is, how are we ready for that? What kind of training are we giving for them? So all these things the Sector Skill Council does. Now, we're coming to a very important point. The National Skills Qualification Framework, I think the principals are also had spoken about NSQF. So what is this NSQF? NSQF is a competency-based framework that organize all qualification according to a series of levels of knowledge and skills and aptitude. In India, when you take any particular skill, say for example, we take a carpenter. So what do we know about a carpenter? We just know that he's carpenter. We just know that he can fix tables, he can make a stool, he can do the shelves, he can make a cot and all those things. But how competent he is as a carpenter, what level has he achieved in it? We do not know. So that is what the NSQF does. It provides a competency-based framework. It categorizes this particular carpenter. What level is he? How and what kind of knowledge that he has? What level is he? What's he going to do? And based on that, in the carpenter level itself, you will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the more 4 and above he goes, that means the expert. Then after the expert, he can set up, he can supervise. After being a supervisor, he can even be an entrepreneur. And then he can become a company owner. That's what we are focusing on. So NSQF, what it does is mobility between vocational and general education by alignment of degrees. So the more higher NSQF level that you attain, you're equivalent to, it will show your equivalence to education. And RPL, allowing transition. So as I told you, in industry, somebody is working. Based on the knowledge that he has, I can certify him because of the NSQF. Because this is the job, these are the things that he knows to do. That means he comes under NSQF level 5 or level 4. So that's what RPL is. It helps us to identify these people, and then it standardizes. So everywhere, if you go, when you say a carpenter level 3 has to know this, a carpenter level 3 has to know that only. And as I told you, when I talked about global mobility, how can this person go abroad and work? So when when this person is going abroad to work, they will check up the NSQF level. So NSQF level 4 or 5 will tell out what all NSQF level 4 or 5 candidate knows, what all this particular carpenter. So based on that, they'll give him a job. So and this NSQF is also being recognized by other countries, and in fact the Gulf countries also, they've accepted this. So who has qualified NSQF trained certificate that he has got, based on it, he gets a job abroad. So it's literally making the mobility very easy. Mapping of progression pathways, which level he is, will help you find out how he's grown in that particular skill. And approval of NOS, National Occupation Standard, and qualification pack. Qualification pack is the job role that he's doing. So I'll just give you a brief picture of those so you can understand what the NSQF, how it works is. This is what the NSQF is. You have level 1, he's a helper mason. It's a very basic job. He just helps out. Level 2, assistant mason. He knows, not only helping, he knows a little bit of job also. Mason in general, he knows the complete job. He knows how to do it by himself. He doesn't need anybody's help. And then you have mason special finishing. So he can control all these people. He knows he can get to the next step. He can control and handle people. And then you have the foam and concrete. In fact, foam and concrete literally handle the entire area. So he can be the lead person for that particular construction that is happening. So he's like one man contract, and that means what he has been a helper mason, assistant mason, mason. He knows all the jobs that is being done by all these 3 people, and only then you become a mason special finishing, and then you become a foreman concrete. So that is a level that you grow. So earlier we didn't do this kind of skill competency mapping. Today we've done competency mapping. This is applicable to all sectors. You can make, this is construction. You have the similar in agriculture. You have this similar in electronics. You have the similar in IT, and aviation. You have similar. In apparels and training, you have similar. So this literally, it gives a boost to the skills and how you look at skills, and to focus on what kind of skill each particular person has, and with that particular skill where you can fit him. So each industry, when they go through this, they will say, okay, what NSQF level did you finish? Okay, if you finish this, I can put you here. So industry literally knows. So, and our industry can also say, like, I need more people on level 6 of this particular training. That is what the training is all about. So if when I'm talking about level 6, when you talk, it is a foam and concrete. So the foam and concrete should know all these job roles, what all the helper mason is doing, assistant mason is doing, all those things he has to know. So it literally creates a sync. So industry, there is a sync between academia and industry. That is what we've been talking from the beginning. So once again, PMKUA, I'll just run you through what we've achieved. This is on April 2020. Target allocated is 44 lakhs and odd, and recognition of prior learning, RPL is 84 lakhs odd, and then special projects is 34. 3,40,000, and this is the, I mean, where target allocated means the number of people that will be given for training, and then total train means out of the 44,000, how many people did actually got the training, and you have various issues and all, and of that how many people are certified, and of that 15 lakh or placed, that means they're going to job. So recognition of prior learning, it doesn't apply, because normally we take them from the company after training, they will be getting back to their own jobs again, but now there will be a skilled workforce. And special project, we have placed around 57,184. And we have something called we have PMKVY centers, who are training centers, who are part of NSCC, who are part of the government, where under each PMKVY you have various PM training centers where people get trained. Now PMKK centers are a very specialized training center set up by the government. For each district there's one PMKK. So this is one place where you have around 5 to 7 skills taking place, training, different kind of training taking place. And this is more like a model center. Anywhere in Chennai or anywhere in Tamil also, we have a lot of PMKK centers. You can go have a look to get a better idea of what is happening in skill development. So in that we've placed almost 54,184 certified, 9,24,000. So SS train enrolled. So we've been doing a lot of work on that, and so far we have 812 centers across India, and 738 centers are established. They are functioning. So before I just close, I just want to talk about NAP scheme. NAP's the National Apprenticeship Scheme. See, the reason why we're focusing on NAPS is, as I told you, NAPS is it's a very successful model which has been happening all over the world. When somebody is enrolled as an apprenticeship, they are directly getting on a hands-on training. So when they get a hands-on training, they are very valuable to the industry. They have more value in the industry, more than a person who's getting trained elsewhere, because he's literally working on in the industry's premises, is literally training on what he's going to work on in the future. So government has come out with a lot of support for the industries. So they will share the cost. They up to 7,500 for 3 months they have, and I'm sorry, the government will give around 1,500 per month per apprenticeship. It will be 25% of the prescribed stipend, not more than 1,500, and it's all online. It's very easy for the government to, easy for the company to enroll people, candidates. It's a portal that they can just log in, and it's more like a matching service. You put up your requirement and the candidates has to just come and apply, and then he can just come and work for you. After the end of the apprenticeship period, he gets a certificate also. So that is a very good move, and government has done. And other countries have been doing NAPS apprenticeship in such a big way, and it's gone a great way. So it's a win-win opportunity for them, because when you have an apprenticeship, the company doesn't have much commitment towards the candidate, and the candidate also learns hands-on. So both of them are winning. So that's what it's about. And total apprenticeship engagement. So we have 96,370, and then number of establishment is 2,637. Focusing on that, and right now the available opportunity is 206,700. So almost 2 lakhs opportunities are there. The question is how many youth are taking it up. So about NSCC's international engagement, we have partnered with Singapore Enterprises, Japan, German Dual Tibet, and we are providing, as I told, advisory services to Africa, South Africa, Morocco, all those African countries, and capacity building, training of trainers, training of assessors, Industry 4.0. We're doing German curriculum to Indians, and then we are a part of the UniWalk, World Bank, FIC, all those things. And we have a program called TITP, wherein we are identifying students in India, and they go to Japan for a period of 2 years and work. And after that, once they're skilled, they have the opportunity to either work there or come back. That kind of opportunity we're providing. We have tied up with UAE and training people, and they go work there. With Sweden we're doing it, and we have IISC, India International Skills Centers, where students are being trained and then sent abroad. We tied up with many partners for that. And we have international benchmarking. So whatever, as I told you, NSQF, the standards which is created by us is adopted by other countries like Australia, UK, and UAE. So this is what we've been doing. And finally, the world skills. World skills, I know it may be a new concept to all of you. Just like the Olympics, the world skills is a competition for the skill development. At that, the world skills has, as I said, the 38 sectors or more which comes in it, and they compete on everything. So there are around 400 plus competitors, 27 states from India, and 46 skills in the world skills competition. And this was the one which has happened in Kazan in Russia last year, 2019. And in that, we've come so far. We've won 1 gold, 1 silver, and 2 bronze medals, along with 15 medallions of excellence across key skills, and more than 1,350 competitors from India. From 63 countries across 56 skills. We finished 13. That is out of 63 countries that participated at the global competition. What happens is when candidates go and work on this world skills, you're sending out a signal, a message to the world. Say India has so much of skilled manpower of this. So companies, and many companies come to, they sponsor these events. When they come back, they start coming and they start looking to India as a potential skill capital. That's what we talked about. Finally, I'll close with this a quote from Alvin Toffler. He says, "The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write, cannot be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn." So with that, I think I'll close my presentation. Be happy to discuss a few things with you. Shall I?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation, sir. Can you close the presentation,
yes.
sir? Yeah, fine. So when we know NSDC, National Skill Development Center, is one of the top priority project for our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So but if today only I have gone through, I have fully attended the NSDC webinar by Mr. Rufus George, and I come across lots and lots of initiative of NSDC, and the numbers were amazing in lakhs. So which creates a very good talent pool among the whenever there is a requirement. So I thank Mr. Rufus George for the wonderful presentation and exploring the avenues under NSDC. And we are also one of the PMKVY certified training center, Chennai Institute of Technology, and should be proud to have that with us.
Yes.
And so, considering time, shall we take some questions, sir?
Yeah.
2-3 questions.
Yes.
In PMKVY TI, we are completed the training and about the conduct assessment, but unfortunately we could not due to the pandemic. Kindly advise us.
Okay. See, the pandemic is a problem for all of us. So right now, what is happening is we are in a phase wherein the PMKVY, earlier there was PMKVY 1, now this PMKVY 2. PMKVY 2 is closed right now. So so please hold on for some time. Possibly we're waiting for next month. Once everything is opened up, we will train the candidates that we already started training on. So no more fresh candidates because the scheme is closed. We will not that we are revamping it. The PMKVY 3 is coming. That will possibly start in about 2 months or 3 months, and we will move on to PMKVY 3. Before that, we will make sure that existing candidates whom you're training will be sent to assessment and cleared and certified, and only then we will move on to the next. So please hold on.
Moving on to the next, NSDC have a special COEs for skill development.
Yeah, we have a lot of NSDC doesn't pertain respectively. We coordinate, we tie up with colleges, institutions to set up Center for Excellences. You can, for more information, you can contact the Sector Skill Council, and I've given my email ID also. You can write to me. I'll be happy to guide you to any particular COEs that you're looking at. And by the way, you should also, in Tamil Nadu, you should also focus on Tamil Nadu Skill Development Corporation, because they are coming out with 4 different centers called Apex centers. The Apex centers are funded by government JICA, and the industry. So they've opened up a center for healthcare, and I've just heard that the courses they're going to offer there are also going to be certified by World Health Organization, WHO. And then you have one more center which is coming up for manufacturing, and one more center which is coming up for logistics, and one more center, banking and finance, is on the process. So in Tamil Nadu, you have to look up when you're looking at Center for Excellences. Otherwise, if you're looking at COEs and other states, please write to me. I'll connect you to the particular SSC or to the other state engagement officers of NSDC, and they should be able to help you out.
Fine, sir. Moving on to the next. Please mention functions and roles of UDAN in skill development.
So UDAN is a different program. It doesn't. It's like, for example, UDAN is primarily for Jammu and Kashmir. It's not for the other states. See, for those kind of schemes, getting people itself will be a problematic scenario. So there are a lot of, what do you say? It's many rigid rules are flexible there. Students who are taking up, for example, in PMKVY, if a candidate comes to train, we ask them to give their Aadhaar number, and they have to put that we have a biometric. So why we do this? To stop any cheating, because sometimes the same candidates is registered in 2-3 places, create confusion and all. So in Jammu and Kashmir, many of them may not even have these Aadhaar card and all those things. So for them, those kind of relaxations are given, but by and large it's the same. But if you want more information, specifically if you are from J&K, I'll be happy to connect you to my colleague in J&K, and so that you can get more particular information on UDAN itself.
Okay, sir. So I'm just looking for any other questions. 1 second, sir. I'm just.
Yes.
My network is not supporting me.
Okay.
One second. I'll just.
That's okay, sir. No problem. You can write to me on my email. My email is rufus.george@nsdcindia.org. I'll be happy.
We have one more question, sir. Sorry. We are from industry integrated training.
Okay.
Is it possible to connect with SSC for training modules?
You can get connected to SSC for training modules, but I don't know if they will give you training modules. They will not be sharing their training modules, because the training module the SSC is creating, which is being implemented, it goes through a rigorous process. Once the course content is created, it goes to NSQF. NSQF analyzes. There is a committee which goes through that, and then they approve it. Only then it comes under NSQF. Only then it's out, and the QP knows everything is created for that. So if you can talk to them, but you need to have the course content. If it's a new job role that you're creating, you need to have the course content for that. But anything else, I'll be happy to connect you to the SSC, relevant SSC.
So can you explain the major requirements for vocational education industry standards? Because now industries are giving more importance to specific domain training.
Sir, this depends on each particular industry, because it's not one size fits all. Whatever is happening in the retail sector, I cannot take it and put it in manufacturing. Whatever is happening in manufacturing, I cannot recommend that to the agriculture sector. So you need to talk to the industry, find out what particular training they need. For example, I'll give you a small example. There is an ITA somewhere, some government ITA also. In that particular district, you need to find out what all industries are there. Possibly you need to have a person to go and talk to those people, what particular job requirement they have, in what particular skill they're lacking, and where they need more people. So once you talk to the industry, they will give you a picture. This is the kind of candidate that we want. So based on that, you can create the training. So why I'm saying this is you need to do this reverse engineering process, because once you have the need, based on that, you create the training. So once you train the candidate, automatically they're placed. So your whole circle is complete. I hope I clarified.
Yes, sir. So we will we will conclude the session now, sir. So again, I thank Mr. Rufus George for making this wonderful session very interesting and informative for every one of us. So we have audience from not only from Tamil Nadu and Pondicherry, we have audience from Bihar and Andhra Pradesh and Uttarakhand, all. So thanks to all the participants, and I hope this information shared by Mr. Rufus George will be useful for setting up or tying up with any kind of NSDC activities. As he said, you can very well write to him for any kind of clarification or implementation of NSDC activities inside your organization also.
Yes.
Thanks, Mr. Rufus George, sir, and also the participants. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Bye.